In the first Kingdom Hearts game, our protagonist Sora has a run-in with his best friend Riku early on in Traverse Town, this being the first time the two have met since their home, Destiny Islands, was destroyed by the Heartless. Sora at this point offers to take Riku on his gummy ship joyride across the cosmos, but Donald interjects, leaving Riku to be left behind until basically the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. But what if Donald was actually nice for once? How cool would it be to have Riku as a party member in the back half of the game? Well, before we really get going, please remember to click all the YouTube buttons. Alright, let's go! I can't imagine much changing for the rest of the Traverse Town trip, since the only thing left is the opposite armor fight, which is easy enough already when there is not an extra Riku around. But as for how Riku would actually work in the party, I'd imagine he works like Donald and Goofy, a permanent party member that can be rotated out at save points. No increase to the maximum party limit, you still only control Sora, but Riku is not subject to the rules of the One World Disney protagonists, like he is in KH2 for some reason. As for the actual worlds this affects, Riku being on Sora's side for Agrabah instead of interning for Maleficent means he likely won't be kidnapping Jasmine anytime soon. But Maleficent had other goons, such as Pete and Hook, at this point in the series, that can just grab her anyway. After this is Monstro, where, despite Riku taking up a majority of this world's plot, despite the fact that he won't be kidnapping Pinocchio anytime soon, the parasite cage still needs dealt with because you are still stuck in Monstro's digestive system, and I doubt Monstro likes having this thing mucking about in there. After this is Atlantica and Halloween Town, where Riku plays no role anyway, but since he's traveling with Sora, this means we get to see a fishy and spooky version of Riku, which would just be fun. Now, before moving on to Neverland, there's an important question to answer. Where the heck did Kairi end up? Because when she next enters the story is when Riku just has her unconscious body in Neverland, but it's never explained where he found it. Now, there is this one scene in Recoded, which just occasionally has KH1 Riku flashbacks for some reason, where he is sitting on the Neverland clock tower with her unconscious body. And I can't imagine what he'd be doing there with her other than collecting her, so it seems logical to assume that she wound up there. Now, this means for Neverland that since Riku is not a problem, it is just the Peter Pan stuff, even short the anti-Sora, since Riku's the one who created it. After that, Sora and Riku go to Neverland's clock tower to seal the keyhole, only to find Kairi's unconscious body, where they then promptly pick her up and take her to the final destination in lieu of a better solution, Hollow Bastion, where Maleficent resides. Normally this world opens with Riku hijacking the Keyblade, but at this point I don't think he'd do that even if he found out it should have been his. Because, like, why? Now this causes complications because after losing the Keyblade, is when Riku is actually possessed by Ansem. But he's in no place for that to happen. Mentally, physically, or like darkness quota-wise, because like I assume you'd need a pretty high darkness in you to get possessed by Xehanort. That is literally the entire plot of Terra's story in Birth by Sleep. But very conveniently, there is someone in this castle who is very upset and very full of darkness, because two punk teenagers keep stopping all of her plans. That's right, it's going to be... Ansem is going to be possessing Maleficent. Now, we are going to move past the trans Ansem implications I know the community would love to dwell on, and go straight to the fight in the Grand Hall. Since Riku has more of a connection with Maleficent than Sora does, she did still find him after he crash landed at Hollow Bastion, I'd imagine this cutscene focuses more on Riku, and he's maybe even in the fight as a party member instead of all your party members getting stuck behind a weird barrier. But there is still the fight, and unfortunately at the end of it, Riku can do nothing to stop the fact that Kairi is still in Sora, and thus it needs to be shish kebabbed to let her out. Happy birthday, Roxas and Naminé. But then after this is when Ansem shows back up again, leaving only Riku to defend the now awake Kairi. I have to imagine the fact that he hasn't been doing a bunch of evil interning speedruns his Keyblade Awakening from the end of KH2 to this game, so that he can move on from the Dinky Soul Eater. And finally fight off Ansem. Now, assuming neither Donald nor Riku are stupid enough to kill Sora's Heartless, Kairi can easily run in after this and fix that whole mess. Well, somewhat. It's a much bigger mess, but she's trying her best. And after this, everyone escapes to Traverse Town, where there is likely a small change to the Kairi scene in the Secret Waterway. That being Riku is also there and hands over Oblivion at the same time, and Kairi hands over Oathkeeper, rather than Oblivion just being in a random chest in Hollow Bastion on the next trip. Speaking of that next trip, I imagine it goes quite quickly with 2 key boys smashing up the behemoth, followed by getting jump-scared by Xemnas, until it's time to go to the end of the world, where not much changes actually, until we reach the door, where 0.2 enters the equation. Now, Sora and Mickey do need to stay on their sides of the door because they have the special Keyblades that lock it. But I'd imagine the opportunity for Aqua to actually get out of the Realm of Darkness and not get chucked by the Demon Tide back to Destiny Islands inside the Realm of Darkness, just try to keep it straight, means that she can actually use the door to escape at this point rather than 2 years later in KH3. But I imagine in the kerfuffle, Riku still gets on the other side, and you do still need 2 people on each side, one to actually close the door, and one to lock it with the magic key. Now, Sora has Donald and Goofy, so that one wasn't a big deal anyway, but yeah, Riku does still need to be on that side. Which functionally means that KH1 ends on the same point, same sad ending, only now it's plus an Aqua. Don't worry though, Diz is on standby to shortly yank Riku out of the Land of Darkness, with Mickey shortly in tow. Chain of Memories in general goes by much faster, as with Aqua around she can speedrun Castle Oblivion back to the Land of Departure, very likely disorientating all of the organization members inside. Certainly long enough for a professional Keyblade master to come in and smack them all, except for the fire guy who probably ditched the second he saw the water girl. Which means that as of about after wrapping Chain of Memories up in about 5 minutes, everyone is fine. Sora and Riku have a choppier reunion than the end of KH2. Diz probably has to come clean about all of his plans, or otherwise gets hit with a blunt key. Naminé is safe and has no emotional manipulation. The Riku replica is never created, Sora never needs to go into an egg pod, and I'm sure none of this has any consequences for anything ever.